was arguably the first and most prominent face of the Utah Jazz when they arrived in Salt Lake City in 1981. Frank Layden was the boisterous, often hilarious head coach who worked his way into the hearts of the fans and, most importantly, his players. To a person, they would walk through fire for him because they knew deep down inside this tough competitor from the streets of Brooklyn actually loved them dearly. Now at age 88, he's enjoying the fruits of all that hard work and affection. I sat down with Coach Frank Layden and asked him 3 questions. In those early days, it was really quite difficult. I mean, you had 2 co-owners of the team. You were playing in the Salt Palace Arena. I remember those days. I mean, how tough was it, really?
Well, the arena itself was not up to major league standards. It was okay, and it was fun there.
And it was better than the Superdome.
It was better than the Superdome, and there was a closeness. You know, I always used to say, you know, it was funny, and we'd have so few people. Somebody would yell across, "Hey, can I get a hot dog over here?" They'd yell across the court. You know, it was, and the people got to know each other. Don't forget, in those days, we had a band. We had a little symphony or a group that played together. Yeah. We had a booster club, which was loyal. They were wonderful. They used to remember all the players' birthdays, and they made the players feel good. They took the players home with them, almost like in college. You know, they took them to have dinner at their homes and got to know them. And we started to develop a very good atmosphere. So in a way, the Salt Palace played a role in developing that family feeling that we had. But we had a real small locker room. We didn't have a real good training room. And finally, the commissioner told us, this isn't going to go on. You guys are going to have to find another place to play.
I remember when John Stockton was drafted out of college. I happened to be in Spokane, Washington at the time, and I remember the ESPN commentators saying, John Stockton gets picked from Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington, going to the Utah Jazz. Now, at that time, nobody knew who John Stockton was.
A lot of people didn't know him. You know, his toughness, his mental toughness was probably his greatest asset, besides his God-given agility and physical talents. He was a smart guy. He was one of those very, very special players. Yeah. And it wasn't long after, all of a sudden came the mailman.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that combination. I don't know if either of them would have been quite as great, you know. We forget that I think Malone's the 3rd leading high scorer in the history of the league. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, but
well, somebody was passing the ball to him.
Somebody was passing the ball to him, and he was finishing.
Yeah.
And they both had a great work ethic. Malone and Stockton never wanted a day off. They wanted to play basketball. They wanted to practice. They loved playing, practicing, playing, and that's why I think it had a lot to do with their constant improvement. They didn't get to the pros, take the check, and say, "This is it. This is as good as I'm going to get." They got to the peak of their games, and they were a pleasure to work with.
I don't know if you meant to be funny or whether it was just your personality coming out. I'm thinking of Morgana the Kissing Bandit.
Yeah.
I remember when she came and kissed you on the cheek and you wound up on the floor.
That was a special moment in my life.
We could tell. We could tell. But then.
And I heard for years.
Oh, did you really?
She sends me Christmas cards every year.
You mean an awful lot to her.
Here's the thing. I see humor in a lot of things that other people don't always see. You know, for instance, I'll give you an example. We played a 7-game series with the Lakers. Mm-hmm. I thought that might have been the greatest basketball team ever. They had Worthy, they had, Jabbar, and they had Magic, and everything. And 7 games. Pat Riley, a wonderful coach.
Yeah.
Well, when we sat down for the press conference after the thing, we lost the 7th game there in California and in Los Angeles. And I said, boy, that was fun, wasn't it? And Pat says, it sure was, Coach. Let's do it again. You know, he realized that what I said was true. We enjoyed it. It was fun. It was the conferences afterwards and the winning and everything else. And that's how I think you should approach sports.
You made fun of him out there on the court.
Yes.
Just combing your
and
hair.
he still does it when I see him. He goes like this to me. You know? But I think you have to see humor in things.
Yeah.
If you take it too serious, and it's only basketball, as long as you teach your players and you figure, I did everything I could.
Right.
Now, if I did anything wrong in the meantime, I'm not. Vince Lombardi said, if we're not in shape, it makes cowards of us all. If you're not in shape, if you're not ready, if you don't do your homework, you don't study the scouting reports, you don't watch films, you don't work at your game. Now you're making all this money. You owe it to the fans, you owe it to your family, you owe it to everybody to give it the best effort you possibly can. If you can walk out off the court knowing you've left everything you have out there, that's all you can ask for. You know what I mean?
And you ought to have fun doing it,
And
don't
you should have fun, sure, or else do something else for a living.
Frank Layden, former head coach of the Utah Jazz, thank you so much for being part of 3 Questions.
Well, Bob, thank you very much for having me. Yes. Now, I know, do I get a Boulevard or something?
You get a Boulevard watch. Is that what you're going to get? Thanks so much, Coach.
Okay.
To see Bob's full interview with Frank Layden, including how a head coach motivates his highly talented players without getting in the way, and whether he believes the Utah Jazz can win a championship this year. Go to fox13now.com and listen to the entire interview in podcast form. Just download it from wherever you get your podcasts.